I'd hold off a
They
little
just have
bit
to pump it
until
up.
people get to know that I'm actually really sarcastic. So
Oh.
I don't know. I have no opportunity to be
Yeah, you can.
anything.
We don't need lights off.
Ooh. Very exciting. Welcome to League of Women Voters Scary House.
You guys practice your songs, right? I'm like, oh boy.
No, these are the ones that are always on.
Yeah, they will be. Yeah, the mics are hot, friends.
Are they?
Hello?
Is it working now?
No, the mics are.
Test. Is the mic on? Is the mic on?
Nope.
But not in here.
The viewing audience can hear us, but. Test, test, test. I'll just keep saying it until we can hear ourselves. Test.
Okay, do you remember her name?
Yeah, she's getting the feedback there.
Laura Helmer.
Hear you in there, but not live. She's working on it because she's not here. Any other guys?
Test. Test.
Whatever was on the sheet. Garcia.
Yeah. So obviously we're having some audio problems, so we will just be waiting a few minutes until apparently the live stream the audio is working, but for here in the room, it isn't, so we want to make sure we have microphones available for all the candidates and us. So thank you for being so quiet while we're waiting.
I can yell.
Test. Test.
Test.
Now it's good.
Test. Can you hear me now? Okay, so we're not live yet, though.
These lights are not good yet. Should we wait till then? I think we can just wait till he's.
Or cell phones or anything that just put away and use our notepads to write your notes
Okay.
on questions or things like that.
No, we don't have enough light.
Need a.
Great. So just your
Okay.
opening and closing
Got it.
statements. Right here. Other notebooks. Right here. Is this part of your opening?
That's just my opening.
Have a response to another candidate, and you've already answered that question. You are allowed to use your next question's time to answer a previous question and then go on to answer the same question.
No, what?
If you already answered it,
No, it's reporting. It's reporting.
you want to respond to somebody else's response, you can use part of your time for your next question.
Should I start?
Could use up your, so you could use up part of the next answer, so you'd have to make that one shorter. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Timekeepers?
Timekeepers are right here. They will give you, are you able to see?
Nope.
Beth, can you hold up a time sign? So.
Oh,
I have to go like this. I can see that.
that would be better.
Yes. Oh. Okay.
Do you holler with your voice or do you shake it?
Welcome. Can everyone hear me okay? Welcome to all of you and thank you for coming this evening. We will start the candidate forum in just a few minutes, but before we do, we have a few requests and a couple of announcements to make. There's lots of chairs in the front is our first announcement. Feel free to make your way over there. We ask that no campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts be worn in this room and that no signs or literature be distributed. However, campaign literature is available on a table outside this room. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear, and please hold your applause until the end of the forum so that our candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. There are a lot of people here, and they're growing in numbers. And we know from questions that we've received in advance that people are very passionate about their candidates and city government. The League is well known for our promotion of respectful and civil discourse We expect that from all the candidates and voters in attendance. At this time, please silence your phones or any other electronics so they do not cause distraction during the event. This forum is being recorded and will be available on the League of Women Voters Eastern Carver County Facebook page, on the City of Victoria website, and the League of Women Voters Minnesota website. It is the League's policy to tape the entire candidate forum without any editing so that citizens will see the event in its entirety and not just selected scenes or sound bites. You are welcome to submit as many questions as you would like. The note cards are available for this purpose, so you should have received them as you were coming in the door. Just hold up your card and an usher will collect them throughout the forum. There's one of our ushers back here. Questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be asked. Those that fall into the same general area may be consolidated to allow us to cover as many topics as possible in the allotted time. All questions will become the property of the League of Women Voters Eastern Carver County. We're waiting for a cue to see if we're live. Maybe we already are live.
Heidi, can you check and see if we're live? Okay, go ahead.
Great, okay. So good evening. I'm Maria Moeller, President of the League of Women Voters of Eastern Carver County. And on behalf of our league, I'd like to welcome you to the City of Victoria Candidate Forum. We thank all the candidates and the audience for attending tonight and our online audience for viewing. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose a political party or a candidate for office. League of Women Voters Eastern Carver County has a long-standing history in our community of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by Minnesota voters regardless of their political beliefs. Sponsorship of this forum is a public service providing you with an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss important issues face-to-face. The views expressed here tonight are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement by the League of any particular candidate. And there is never enough time to cover all the issues. If you feel that your question was not addressed, please go ahead and contact the candidate directly after the forum. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, Laura Helmer. Laura is a certified moderator from the League of Women Voters of Eastern Carver County, and she also serves as the Voter Service Chair of the Board of Directors for the League of Women Voters of Minnesota. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Maria. Welcome, everyone. We will start the candidate forum with opening statements. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes for their opening statement and 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates are seated in and will give opening statements in alphabetical order: Judy Black, Sharon Eklund, Paul Hepperla, and Deb McMillan. The order of answering questions and the closing statements will be rotated based on a randomly generated grid. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond to questions. Please note our timekeepers, who have 30-second and then 15-second signs. They also have a stop sign, or will call time, to ensure each candidate has the full 1.5 minutes. The first question has been prepared by the League of Women Voters Eastern Carver County. Additional questions will be those submitted by the audience here and those submitted to the League's email address by the public, candidates, and/or candidates campaign. So let's begin with opening statements. Judy Black.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Judy Black. I'm an 18-year resident of Victoria, blessed with 1 son and 3 beautiful granddaughters. I am also the sole caregiver for my 82-year-old mother and have been for the past 8 years. I am a self-made small business owner with a previous background in accounting, sales, and marketing, giving me a total of over 40 years experience in the business world. Over the years, I have met many people from all walks of life and have learned that we are all unique, yet similar in the fact that we all want to be heard and understood, to be validated. That's where community comes in. We work, play, come together as good neighbors and friends for a sense of belonging, for validation. The job of our city government is to maintain that sense of community and work for the betterment of everyone. When that becomes broken, trust is lost, divisiveness becomes the norm, and we don't know what to believe is truth anymore. My goal as your council representative will be to rebuild that trust, move us forward in a more positive direction, and focus more on what the community wants and needs. Your vote for me on November 6th is needed to make that happen. Stop. Okay.
Thank you. Sharon Eklund.
Hello, my name is Sharon Eklund. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for giving us the opportunity to meet with all of you. My husband and I have lived in Victoria for 50-plus years. We've seen a lot of changes, met many people, and now I would like to have the opportunity to give back to the residents of Victoria and represent you on the Victoria City Council. I have no connections to any one group here, just Victoria residents. I will do my utmost to restore confidence in city government. With no incumbents running for city office, we have a great opportunity for a fresh start. I am currently chairman of an international fraternal organization and on the board of 2 nonprofits. I have learned the importance of listening to and showing respect to fellow members to achieve our goals, and I will carry this with me to the City Council. I am committed to placing importance on all city business under consideration. No city business should be conducted without a complete record being made available in advance to the public. We need our council to work together, not only with each other, but also with the public, openly, honestly, and enthusiastically. Thank you.
Paul Hepperla.
Good evening. I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters, as well as the fellow candidates, Judy Black, Sharon Eklund, and Deb McMillan. I appreciate your time here tonight as well. I think this election is critical to our city and the direction that we want to take. I've been a resident for a little bit more than 3 years, so compared to Sharon, I'm a baby in this town. But I've been around the area for about 20 years. And in the last 3 years, I saw a number of things that I saw happening within the city council that I didn't like. And so my pledge is to bring something forward that's fresh and new, and that's a different perspective. I've got 25 years of experience in the business world. I'm currently a vice president with Emerson. And when I think about what I want to bring to this city, it's first integrity and ethics. And that's a critical part of how we act and how we treat each other as well. The next biggest thing is transparency, but transparency without resident engagement really means nothing. So getting engaged residents involved in the city is a big important part of that. The 2 other aspects that I want to do is to create the right environment for business, and that means leveling the playing field and expanding business beyond just downtown. And the final thing is we want to focus on all of Victoria, so making sure that we're covering the southerly expansion, the Lake Town annexations, and other areas that are important to our city growth. Thank you for your time. I look forward to the questions.
Deb McMillan.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters as well for hosting this forum. I'm Deb McMillan. My husband Carrie and I have made Victoria our home for the past 33 years. We have 4 grown daughters and we live in the Kelzer Pond neighborhood. I have more than 20 years of experience in organizational leadership, policy development, and public affairs. I currently work as the Vice President of Public Policy for the Twin West Chamber of Commerce. I bring board experience, having served on a number of association and nonprofit boards, and this experience is a nice fit for the work of a city council, both from the policy perspective and from the governing perspective. I'm pleased and proud to have lived in Victoria for the past 33 years and think it's important to honor the work of those who came before us. That gave us the community we have today with a beautiful, vibrant downtown, safe neighborhoods, and an enviable quality of life. My priority would be to continue that same thoughtful development, that both increases and diversifies the tax base. City employees are the face of our community to residents, businesses, and investors. It's important that we prioritize the attraction and retention of talented, experienced professionals to complement the city's current staff. The job of the City Council is to ensure that we have safe, solid infrastructure. This includes streets, drinking water, sewers, parks, and trails, but also includes the city's technology systems as critical infrastructure. As a council, we are tasked with ensuring that the data our residents provide is safe and secure, and the technology that drives our daily activities is up to date and meets the demands of a growing community. Thanks for inviting me. I look forward to the conversation.
Thanks. And the first question, Deb, is going to come back to you. As a Victoria City Council member, what would be your top 2 priorities for the city in the next 2 years?
In the next 2 years, I'd like to continue down the same path that we've been around development and growth. I think it's important to understand that is what diversifies and increases our tax base and keeps a level playing field. So that would be one of my priorities. The second one is the recruitment of city staff. We've lost some key staff people. They are the face of our community to the rest of the world, and I think it's really important that we recruit some talented, qualified staff to fill those roles, develop those relationships with those folks who come to town, and it's an important part of what we do here. So those would be my top 2 priorities.
Paul?
The top 2 for me are really around resident engagement. If you look at the community survey, less than 30% or just around 30% of the people are engaged. While many people are watching the news, only 30% are engaged. I think in order for us to get the input and to make the right decisions that we need on behalf on all residents, we need to get them more engaged. And that means creating vehicles to do that, whether it's through our online presence, reading every single letter that we would receive as a council from somebody who's a resident into the record at the beginning of a council meeting, I think is something that's worthwhile to consider. As we get more and more input from our citizens, we want to make sure they're all heard. The second aspect that I really think that we need to focus on is all of Victoria. And what I mean by that is the southerly annexation. Our growth from a commercial perspective is going to happen more on the Highway 10 and Highway 11 corridor, Engler Boulevard, than it's going to in downtown. If we're going to equalize our tax base by bringing more commercial businesses in, we've got to make sure that we are focused on that. And what that means is having funding set aside and have a plan to both acquire the land that's coming, have a thoughtful plan on how that's developed, and how the ordinances are going to reflect what we want as a city. So those are the 2 big aspects I'll be focused on in the coming years.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes, my 2 top priorities would be to get the council working together and making things more cohesive so that we can follow more of the plans that were already set for us to do. And also the citizen survey has told us exactly what you want. We need to prioritize that and set that into motion. I agree with Deb about the city staff. City staff is lacking. We have interim, we have people that are missing, and we need to bring that forward so that they can take care of the things that we need to move us forward. That's about it.
Thank you. And Sharon?
Thinking of what I would have as the top 2 priorities, I believe harmony on the council would be a good place to start. We need to show respect and listen and agree to show respect. It's very important, and that's a primary thing with getting along and creating a good environment. The second priority I would take would be to update all policies and ordinances. At one of the meetings, the book was passed around with the policies and ordinances, and it's not very complete. And I think there has to be a study made, and these have to be updated and made available to everyone.
All right, thank you. The next question will come to you first, Candidate Eklund. A lack of affordable housing options is one of the top reasons for homelessness, both for individuals and families. What can Victoria City government do to help provide more affordable housing options?
Affordable housing is kind of an open-ended term. What's affordable to some people is not to others. I think with the housing that we have available, it's a wide range of cost, and I don't know what the term affordable housing would really take into consideration. But we do have a lot of single apartments, we have a lot of townhomes, we have rental, purchase. I guess senior housing might be something to consider, and that would have to be certainly investigated and looked into also. So affordable housing, I guess I would like to see explained more as far as cost and what would be affordable housing.
Right. And candidates, I did forget to mention at the outset that if there's ever a time when you need a question reread, please just ask me. Candidate McMillan, same question.
Affordable housing, I think the council has a role in how they zone affordable, or how they zone the land to accommodate the affordable housing. You can do it through things like density. You can do it through by preserving naturally occurring affordable housing. There's also, and I'm really interested in looking at technology and some of the things that are coming, that are emerging in technology around affordable housing. I've seen videos where you can actually print a house in a couple of hours, which is very interesting to me, and really something I think deserves a little bit more research and a little bit more study from the perspective of the housing community. I think it's important. We want teachers living here. We want our police officers living in our community. It's an important goal. I think we should do the best we can as a council to try and achieve that.
Candidate Black?
Yes, I concur with that. I saw that as well, and I thought that was pretty cool. But the thing that we have to take into consideration is how much land we're going to have left for the housing. And also, candidate Eklund, when she talked about what is affordable housing. So we need to look at what can we do to bring in the type of people that can stay, and also with the seniors being able to stay. Right now, the situation is such that the average income here is $134,000. So not everybody makes that. Young families can't afford to come here. They don't have a place to grow families, which we need to bring that influx in. And also, we don't have a place for seniors to live, which is a badly needed area that needs to come along, because in another 10 years, I'll be one of those people. So I need to, it's either that or I'm going to have to leave like everybody else is doing. Thank you.
Candidate Hepperla?
I think there's a few things around affordable housing. One is that I generally think, based upon my conversations, most residents didn't move to Victoria to become part of a high-density housing area. They came for the space, they came for the parks, the trails, and the area that they do have. So there's a few things you can do to address affordable housing. One is to keep the tax base and the tax rate low. Carver County currently is proposing a 4.9% increase in taxes. Without our home growth, we have a budget increase every year, or the last 2 years was 11%. This year proposed somewhere between 5 to 8 if you include the transfers. Keeping that tax base low makes housing more affordable, and so does the elimination or the clarity around ordinances and how homes are built and how they're developed. The other aspect that I think we have to do, though, is take a look at how we preserve some of the core of Victoria. If you come around the older streets of Victoria, they're smaller homes that have great yards, and protecting some of that and making sure that those are held rather than having more large homes that are typically in new developments being built, I think is a great way to offer that flexibility, if you will, in the city around affordable housing. So that's a few things we can do to address that. Most people aren't moving out to Victoria because of commuting and high density, and I don't think that's the vision for what we have in the future.
All right, the next question will come to you first, Paul.
Okay.
What are your views on using tax increment financing as an economic development tool?
Good question. It's been a source of controversy for a long time. If you look at the beginning and the original purpose of tax increment financing, it was really meant for public use, not public purpose. And tax increment financing with public use means that you're going to use that to support infrastructure and city development, not necessarily for private development. And so as we look at tax increment financing, I think it's one of the many vehicles that can be used to support public finance. But I also believe that when it gets into supporting public or private development and private benefit, that's where we get into the controversy. That's where we get into the polarization of how it's being used. So in general, I think TIF is one of those mechanisms. I think we have to be very judicious about how we use that. But it's more about public use and not public purpose. And that means if we're going to build a city park, if we're going to have a utility or something else that the entire city benefits from, that's how we should use it, rather than supporting private development. The but-for clause is really hard to define and very difficult to measure. And so that's a big part of TIF. It's a requirement in the state. That but-for clause is basically betting on the future and saying it wouldn't have happened unless this occurred. I think, unfortunately, the state legislature needs to do something to improve that, but until that time, we should use TIF for public use, not for public purpose.
Deb?
I think TIF is a tool. It can be a catalyst to encourage development in a blighted area. It's got many different uses. I think it's a tool in the toolbox. Generally, I favor keeping all those things available as they're to use judiciously. I think past councils have used that tool judiciously in the past, and I'm generally in favor of using it if it makes sense. But again, the devil's in the details on that.
All right. Sharon?
TIF has many different aspects. It started in California in the 1950s. It's my understanding that it's no longer available to be used in California. It can be a benefit, but it can also be a detriment. I think study would need to be made if TIF was suggested to be used for a project. It can't be just automatically accepted, but it can't be automatically rejected. So there has to be a lot of study and thought process put into it for what it would be used for. And I agree, if it's something to better the residents of the entire city, it probably has more benefits than used for private development.
And Judy?
Okay, well, as Deb said, TIF is a tool that's used to help develop the area. For instance, let's say a piece of property is worth $5,000, and you're getting taxes paid on that property of $1,000, to make it easy. If you help develop to bring the value of the property up, you're going to eventually create a higher tax base from that property. By helping a business do that, that is not only bringing up the value of that property, but it is also bringing in, it's bringing in employees, it's bringing in people coming into the city, it's drawing attention, it's making the city bigger all the way around, and it's making it more valuable. Does it need to be used for everything? Absolutely not. And there is the but-for test, and there is stages and steps that you have to go through before you're allowed to even have a TIF. So do I think that we should do it in the right circumstances? Absolutely. Thank you.
The next question will come to you first, Judy Black. Okay. Do you think Minnesota's open meeting law is important? Why or why not?
Well, absolutely, the open meeting law is important. That's what it's written for. You're supposed to have openness for the public, that anyone wants to know what's going on, so that if they have an issue, that they can address that and speak out against or for it. I don't know why anyone would not want that.
Paul Hepperla.
Open meeting laws are important, but I think right now they're in flux. I think that laws are only as good as how they're enforced. And if open meeting laws take extraordinary measures to be enforced or to have any other redress for the folks that might violate that, I think it becomes difficult, and it really becomes a little bit more toothless than what it is currently. So I think open meeting law, the very basis of it is very, very important, and to have complete openness, especially on how cities and how councilors act and how the mayor might act, is incredibly important, and we need to make sure that that happens. Obviously we have a history here in Victoria of the open meeting law violations, and it has caused quite a bit of controversy and quite a bit of polarization in the city. And so as we move forward, I think it's incumbent upon anyone who is seated in council, one is to receive the training and understand what the open meeting law is and what it should do, but two, really to be more transparent than we need to be, which is if folks are going to communicate with me, regardless of the issue, I'm happy to publish that online. If they want to redact their name to protect their privacy, no problem. And the other thing is that we need to take a hard look and say, if I violate the open meeting law, I'll resign right away. It doesn't serve the benefit to stay in office when you're doing that.
Thank you. Deb McMillan.
Yes, the open meeting law is very important. I think it helps residents understand what the council's working on. It helps them understand their thought process. That's why it's in place, and I think it's a very important thing. And I think we get training on it. We know what it means. We understand it, and I think, yes, absolutely, we should abide by it.
All right, Sharon Eklund.
Yes, I believe the open meeting law is a very important law. And like the other candidates have said, we do receive training. We do receive written information that we can refer back to. And it's important that we abide by that. And if you're going to have discussions, make them in the open. As candidate Hepperla said, publish it. If you need to remove a name from it, that's fine, but keep everything out in the open. Involve the residents, because to do things without transparency is not good.
All right, the next question will be asked to Paul Hepperla first. Leadership sometimes means helping to resolve conflicting points of view or working alongside those with whom you disagree. Describe your leadership style and how you might lead in those types of situations.
Good question. I will force people to follow me. No, I'm just teasing. Participative leadership means you have to take everybody's perspective into account. And in work environments, especially in the work that I'm in, daily, we're in involvement where we have disagreements. And so I like and I believe strongly in what I call a ferocious debate amongst friends. As counselors, we're on the city council, but even before that, we're neighbors. There should be no reason why we can't have a debate about ideas and issues at the council and then make a decision, and then afterwards go out and have a beer together. It shouldn't be that hard, and it shouldn't cause personal animosity between counselors or between counselors and city staff. So I think it's important to have everybody hear their opinion and have it be stated, and then come to a decision. And when that decision's made, the best thing to do is to, especially if you're in the losing, you're going to have to go along with it. And if you're on the winning side, great, you go along with it. But every day we're going to win some battles, we're going to lose some battles. It shouldn't create animosity.
Deb McMillan.
That was beautifully said. My leadership style is very collaborative. In my work every day, I'm a lobbyist. That's my job. And so we get people from very diverse opinions, and you have to get something together in the middle. So when you start over here and you start over here, you got to get to the middle with some compromise, and I think that's important. And I think it's important, too, as a not just as a leader, but as a participant in the process, to understand what are things that you that you can give on, and what are things that you're very passionate that you're determined that are a deal breaker for something. So I think collaboration, absolutely, consensus building, of course, and then understand that you will have to compromise. And I do it in my job every day, and it's okay. We all live to get to the other side. And to Paul's point, then let's have a beer.
Judy Black.
Yes, both answers, excellent. One of the things that I bring to the table is the fact that in my work, my clients, it's more on an interpersonal type of basis. I have to listen to understand exactly what they're trying to tell me before I can give them what they want. And those are one of the things that I think I can bring to the table that would be a benefit to everyone, because I do listen and I do pay attention, and I decide, I look at both sides. I look at what can we do to make everybody just a little bit happy instead of one side feeling like they lost. I'm open. I'm willing to listen, and those are the things that we need here at the city. Thank you.
Sharon Eklund.
Could you repeat the question again, please?
I can. Leadership sometimes means helping to resolve conflicting points of view or working alongside those with whom you disagree. Describe your leadership style and how you might lead in those types of situations.
Well, I think number one is respect. And when you're talking with people, you need to show respect for one another. Negotiate. There's very few things that are absolutely black and white, but there's a lot of gray area. So if you can negotiate and both of you or multiple people are satisfied with the negotiation, you need to show consideration and then compromise. So it's a lengthy process, and sometimes we are able to achieve exactly what we would like to have, but other times we have to negotiate and give up some of those things that maybe aren't quite as important to everyone. So respect and negotiation.
All right. The next question comes to you first, Sharon. The League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust has requested that the council and mayor participate in services to provide evaluation and guidance to develop strategies to work collaboratively. What are your thoughts on the council participating?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Sure. The League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, which I believe is an insurer of the city, has requested that the council and mayor participate in services to provide evaluation and guidance that would help develop strategies to work collaboratively. What are your thoughts on the council participating in such a service?
I think the council should participate. I can't see any reason that they would not. Perhaps there's some ideas or innovations that the members of the council would have that could help to reach a solution. So I think it would be important that they would participate in that.
Judy Black.
I absolutely think that we should take the classes. A lot of times people get caught in their own thoughts and they can't figure out a way to let that go in a way that feels comfortable for them. And by getting the training that you need to work together and how to communicate back and forth is something that I think we all could take advantage of in this day and age where everyone's kind of like stuck in their own thought process and not being open to another way of communication. So do I think this is great? It's awesome. I would highly recommend it for every city. Thank you.
Paul Hepperla.
I think participation is critical, but I think engagement is even more important. We've all been in meetings where we participated, but those meetings where we're truly engaged make a difference. And so it's critical that as counselors that we are engaged in a process where we're learning how to get along. And I think one of the big ways that you can do that in lots of different forms of life is actually get to know each other outside of the chamber. I think that is a critical way that we can improve the relationship that we have with each other and on this council. So yes, participating in that, but being actively engaged, especially as a new council comes in, I think it's important. Getting to know each other as we become a new council, I think is critical, because I'm less apt to be provide a negative response to somebody if I know who you are and who your kids are and what you're doing on a week-by-week basis. Doesn't mean we have to be best friends, but just knowing that there's other stressors in life helps reduce some of the angst that might exist in a given meeting.
Deb McMillan.
I would absolutely participate. This is something that's really, really concerning to me as a taxpayer in Victoria. If we lose our insurance from the League of Minnesota Cities, our options to get insurance diminish greatly. We are left with either having to live with a very high deductible, and let me just share some stats with you. $4.5 million is the general fund budget for the city of Victoria. If they raised our deductible to $200,000, that's a 5% increase on taxes. I think that is the worst reason in the world to increase your tax, is to cover a deductible on an insurance because you can't work together as a council. It's very concerning to me. If we had to self-insure, we are one lawsuit away from bankrupting the city. As a taxpayer, it's very concerning. We should absolutely engage in every exercise possible to learn how to work together. That's a huge risk, and I can't say it strongly enough.
All right, the next question will come to Deb first. If someone comes to you wanting a change in a city code, how would you go about making a decision on the matter?
First of all, I'd learn what the city code is and what is the problem we're trying to solve, and what's the best way to go about solving the problem. Is it through a city code? Is it something that needs updating? Is it a process? Is it a policy? Is it a procedure? I think that would be my first reaction, would be what is the problem that we're trying to solve, and then going at it from that perspective.
Thank you. Paul Hepperla.
Deb makes a great point. You have to identify the problem you're trying to solve. You have to know what the ordinances are. One of the things that I've seen in some of the council meetings is an ordinance comes up, and when a number of questions get asked about the ordinance, one of the responses was, well, you can get a conditional use permit. It seems silly to pass an ordinance and then have a bunch of conditional use permits for people to be able to opt out of that, or be able to get out of that ordinance. I think there's mechanisms there. I think one voice is good, but many voices are better. And that's where, when we look at an ordinance and understand what the issues that we're trying to solve, we've got to get more residents engaged so that we're making sure that we're making the best decision for all of Victoria, not just a single issue that maybe can be resolved in a different way.
Thanks. Sharon Eklund.
Well, I agree with both Deb and Paul. You have to identify what the problem is before it can be even considered to be solved. In looking at the city code and what the changes proposed would be, it's wise to have the consultation of the rest of the council members and to study that code and see if it needs to be changed or if there's some other way that the residents' problem could be solved. So identifying the problem and then discussing and seeing what could be done to solve that problem.
Judy Black.
Thank you. When someone comes to you with a problem about something like a city code and they want to change it, as they all said, we definitely have to figure out why. And then we talk to the staff and have them look it up and check and see what we need to do if there is a problem and how we would be best to handle it. At that point, then it would come to council, and council would look at it and they would decide from there. If at that point council needs more information, then it would go back to staff and then come back to council. And then that's how the code would be changed. Thank you.
The next question comes to you first, Judy.
Yes.
So a couple of people in the room have sent up questions about a new parking ramp in the city of Victoria. And the question is, who should pay for the ramp?
Well, I don't know that a ramp has been decided. There's a parking task force that has been established by the council, and they're meeting. So until the results of those findings are brought forward, how could I say something about a ramp that I don't know anything about? I'm going to have to pass on that one.
All right. Sharon?
Parking ramp. Parking ramp in downtown Victoria seems a little unreal. There's so little space available to do anything left in downtown Victoria that to build a parking ramp seems it just wouldn't be a good fit. I don't believe that taxpayers should pay for a parking ramp. It's certainly not something that would benefit them directly. And if a parking ramp were to be suggested, I think there would have to be some other way of funding it other than with the taxpayers' money. I don't think we have a parking problem per se, that there's a need for a parking ramp. But with the parking task force and the studies that will be done, perhaps long-range planning would be that a parking ramp would be needed, but at that time, then it could be decided where and how it will be paid for.
Deb McMillan?
Yeah, I think we need to let the process work. There's a parking study underway. Let's find out, first, do we have a parking problem? And if we do have a parking problem, is it a 3-spot problem or a 300-spot problem? I think that we need to have the information to know what we're trying to solve for here. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, so let's find out what that study says.
And Paul Hepperla?
Good question. I think that if we have a parking problem, it's probably a really good sign. It means the businesses are busy and popping, and we've got a lot of excitement going on downtown. But then the second question is, where do you locate it? What's the cost of it? And to your question, how do you pay for it? I don't believe the residents necessarily should be the ones paying for that. I would look at either an assessment or tax on those businesses that are going to most benefit. For example, if you're going to build a commercial district on the south side eventually in a few years, none of those businesses nor those residents way over on the south side are getting benefit unless they're parking in the ramp. So now you have a pay-for parking, and maybe there's a private enterprise that wants to take that on if there's really that big of an issue. So we got to let the process play out, see what the task force comes up with, see what the parking events come through. I'm downtown practically every day, either riding my bike through it or visiting one of the businesses. And very rarely, except when you see massive construction like tonight, do you have a parking issue. And then classic cars, which is obvious. So I think we have to let that process work itself out, and then we have to look at hopefully some creative ways to finance this rather than the taxpayers paying the bill.
Thank you. Sharon, the next question comes to you first. Do you think the city should be more pollinator friendly? And if so, what could the city do to be more pollinator friendly?
That's something that I'm not really familiar with. What is...
Someone here wants to know that.
Bee friendly.
It has to do with the bees.
Okay, well, that was my first thought, but I thought, well, that's kind of a different question, so I didn't really know. I think there has been a lot written and a lot said about the bee population and how it's declining. I have a nephew who has beehives, and he lives in northern Minnesota, but it's a problem there too. The one thing that I've read is that dandelions, which are the first flowers in the spring, really should be retained because that's the first source of pollen for the bees. So maybe if there was an ordinance in Victoria that people their dandelions, it would certainly help the bee population, but I don't think it would be very popular with the residents. So. I guess that's with the Arboretum as close as it is, perhaps we could consult with them and get some viewpoints and some ideas and some thoughts on how we could increase our pollen production so that it would be available for the bees.
Paul?
Thank you.
Guys, we're getting into conversations about birds and bees. I get uncomfortable. One, plant a lot of Russian sage. We have it on the side of the house, and they're all over it. But realistically, we should take a look at the ordinances. Are beehives allowed? On small residential land, could you put up a hive? I have a good friend who has a hive, and he pulls it out, and it's got great honey. It's great for allergies, so on and so forth. But I think you've got to look at a right balance of having natural environment. Maybe that's done through the cities and the parks, along with residential growth. So I think there's a way to balance it. I think we have to look at what the ordinances may allow, and maybe it's worthwhile considering a change. I think we've got to examine the facts on are we seeing a bee issue or not, and then go from there.
Deb?
I'm not sure that we need to legislate this. I mean, I think every good idea does not need to come from government and does not need to be legislated. So I would encourage you to talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, be bee friendly, plant pollinators, suggest to the city parks that would be a great plant to put in the city parks. I'm just not sure that that we need to be the first city to have a dandelion ordinance. I love bees. I love pollinators, but I just don't know that that's something we need to legislate. I would rather have people just do that on their own.
And Judy?
Yes, and I agree with that. One of the things that we could do is educate the members of the community about what types of flowers attract the honeybees so that we can help with the population. I do know that there is a shortage and they're worried about the honeybees. It's, every time I go on Facebook, it pops up. So we need to look at that and see what we can do to do our part to help make sure that they stay here, because from what I read, if they die, we do. So we need to make sure that they keep surviving, and we do our best to make it help. Okay.
All right, next question comes to Deb first. What programs or services would you like to see for the older adults of Victoria?
I'm like Judy here. I'm going to be one of the older adults here pretty quickly. My husband and I have lived here for 33 years. We bought our first home here, we bought our second home here, and we built our third home here, which is quickly becoming too big as our nest is emptied. And so even though this is our community, that might not be our dwelling. So I really do support the idea that we do want to stay here in Victoria. We have great friends. We found great community here. And I think it's important that we find places that we can go to as we age and our needs for our dwelling become different. And I'm very supportive of, social activities for seniors. A senior center is a great thing. We have the field house here. We have a lot of great opportunities with public space. We have a library. Book clubs are a great thing. I think there's all sorts of things. Again, I'm not sure that we need to legislate this. I think that we should just make it available and have folks understand that these are public spaces that are available for their use, and if they want to get together with some friends, they should do so.
Paul?
Aging population is one of the largest populations growing. I think we have to create the right environment for senior living to come in. That doesn't mean we pay for it necessarily. It is a massive investment opportunity right now, and there is a lot of money pouring into the space because the need is so great. So can we create zoning that is best suited for senior living? And the other things that we can do are very simple. Making sidewalks that are clear and easy to walk on and see, making crosswalks, especially across Highway 5, that can be used. If we make areas of accessibility easy for our seniors, it's going to create the right sort of environment that welcomes them in. As you look at senior living, those typically will take up a lot of room because you will typically have transitions from independent living all the way through mental care and memory care issues they have to do to support that. And so that takes a massive amount, typically a massive amount of space and a massive amount of employees and services that accompany that. I think we have to take a look at the proper role of government and determine whether that's not, is it in our interest or is it not, and then look at how we accommodate that.
Judy.
Okay, would you repeat that?
Sure.
After all that, I was like,
What programs or services would you like to see for the older adults of Victoria?
well, I have my mother living with me, who's 82 years old, and she has she's at moderate dementia now, and I have a service that she goes to in Waconia, which is an adult daycare, and she goes Monday through Friday, and it's been a huge relief for me to have her be able to do that. I do wish we had something similar to that here. The fact that we don't it's tough. And then there's things that I wish I had some help for her for the weekends, something for her to do. She's not she's very mobile. She just can't remember much. So we have to keep her on a pattern, keep her going so that she's maintaining herself. And we just don't have anything like that here. And I wish we did. And I would like to find a way that we could. Thank you.
Sharon.
Well, being a participant in some of the senior activities, I think we have a lot available. I see Sue Bill in the audience, and I know Sue was involved over in Chanhassen for a long time. I think someone else has taken your spot now. But the activities between Chaska and Chanhassen and available to Victoria residents are fantastic. There's day trips. There's a lot of activities available. I know the Chaska Lodge is a fantastic place for seniors to gather. If people aren't driving, perhaps transportation would be something to look at that would be available for seniors, that they could be transported to some of these other facilities to participate with other seniors and play games and walk and have activities. We have our rec center here, and I think there is the walking path, and I think there's activities offered for senior activities there too. So the one thing I agree with Paul is that walking surfaces should be made very stable and clear and accessible. So I enjoy them, the senior activities.
All right. This next question comes to Paul first, and it's the opposite end of the age spectrum. What programs or services would you like to see for the youth of Victoria?
I think we should combine the two together.
I think so too.
I forget who said it. They talked about putting nursing homes together with orphanages, and I truly believe that would be one heck of a way to improve the quality of life around the board. For kids, I think there's quite a bit to do. I think between the rec center, community programs that are there, as well as the school district, there's quite a bit to go on for children. I do think that there are activities that we could leverage the Manshell and the downtown area better for, and it's a matter of, I think, frankly, marketing better and letting the rest of this area of the community know, besides the city of Victoria, that we've got a great downtown area and that we've got a great little bandshell that we could use for kids' environments, and market and get that participation increasing. I think if people know that we have the capability and the capacity to create some great programs out here, they'll come out here. And if they know we're welcoming to those sorts of ideas, they'll bring it forward.
Thank you. Deb.
Yeah, I agree. I think my opinion is about the same as it was with the seniors. I don't know that this is something we have to legislate. We've got a really robust park and rec program here in Victoria. I think they do a great job providing programs that are interesting to the families. Families are very mobile. They can pick up and they can go to the next city very easily. I'm not a big fan of redundancy in making sure that every city has one of everything. So I support the stuff that we've got going on. We've got great parks here. I'm not sure that I would see a need to increase any of that activity.
Sharon?
I tend to agree with Deb, too. It seems like there are a lot of activities offered for the youth in the area, and the rec center is a great spot. Like Deb said, we've got beautiful parks, Lions Park and Deedham Park. Paul's idea of combining the seniors with the youth or the children isn't a bad idea either, because I think they can play off one another and really benefit from the association. They both can learn from each other. But to set aside specific areas or whatever for youth, I don't think is necessary, because I think they can interact and enjoy and use facilities and enjoy themselves and their associates.
And Judy?
Yes, I agree with all of them. The idea of having the youth with the elderly is an awesome idea. I know that at the center where my mother goes, there are classes of grade school kids that come there periodically, and they spend time with the seniors there. And my mom always comes home and she's always excited about it, and they make them little cards and they do these kinds of things, and she goes, look what they made for me. And it's exciting. As far as just for the children, we offer a lot. We have the library now, we have the parks, we have, with my client base, the kids, half of them have to come after 6 to get their hair done because they're in sports. And they're always, it's like, well, I can't come that day because of this, and I can't come day, well, I've got this in that one. So, that whole idea of commingling the young with the old, I think it's an awesome idea.
All right, I have time to ask you 2 more questions tonight, and the first one will be about strategy, and the second one will be about long-term vision. Sharon, the first question comes to you first. City Council's chief responsibility is to set strategies for the city. What strategic initiatives would you push for?
That's a question that I haven't really given a lot of thought to. And I know growth and development is a big item, and I think we need to move slowly in that area. I think we all moved here looking for a place that wasn't high density. We need to look at encouraging some business tax base for the city of Victoria, because I don't believe we can continue to have our only tax base with home growth and building. Strategically, I guess that would be my 2 thoughts, is to look for a bigger tax base and to kind of slow down on the home building, which we could do if we had a tax base.
Judy.
One of the things I would want to really do is look at the citizen survey and prioritize the wants and the needs of the community. People want the trails connected. They want a council that gets along and can work together to fulfill those needs for them. They do want a grocery store. Whether we can get one or not, we have to figure out a way to attract it. If we do, it may be down the road. The other thing is, of course, bringing business in here, and by creating an environment that makes them want to come here is what we need to do. And by doing that, we will expand that tax base so that we can create more income for the city to offer the services that you've been asking for. Thank you.
Paul?
Good question on strategic initiatives. I think that we generally have to get some thoughts from the residents, but if I look at those and look at what I'm seeing as opportunities for us, it's around, again, I brought it up before, but as we grow south, we've got a lot of thought and planning that's going to have to go into that. We have a number of commercial businesses that are planned on that southern corridor that we've got to think about. And we've got to think about what's the right use of that land and how do we structure that. I think that's got to become part of our thought now, even though we might not be taking hardcore action on it for a couple years. And so as we look at that, that's got to be part of our strategic planning. And it's got to be tied to the comp plan 2040 now that's coming out and how those two tie together. Tax equalization and understanding what we're going to do about that. And you know, since I've been here, and again, I haven't been here long, but I've asked a lot of people the question, and I don't think Victoria has answered the question of what do we want to be when we grow up. I think there's a lot of debate out there around the bedroom community or more active involvement, and I think part of that means that we've got to have a lot more engagement with citizens to understand what exactly do we want to be. And so part of that strategic initiative is going to be engagement.
And Deb?
Yeah, I think all of those are great ideas. As we're looking to develop South and understanding that we really do want to increase some businesses to increase the tax base, it's important to understand what does that look like. Is that light industrial use? Is that a warehouse use? Is that something more retail again? Do we want to have two separate retail areas here in Victoria? So I think as we move forward with a vision and a plan, it's what's the best and highest use of all the land that we have available, zone it appropriately to attract the kinds of businesses that we want here, and hopefully all of that tied together with how do you diversify the tax base. Businesses always subsidize resident taxes. They're much, much higher, and they always subsidize resident taxes, and it's important to understand, you know, what kind of taxes you're going to be collecting from them. How does it support your residential tax base, and again, just understanding what that looks like. In, you know, do we want to be industrial? Do we want to be light industrial? Do we want to be a warehouse? Do we want another retail area? And what can we support?
Thanks. And the last question will come to you first, Deb, and it's summarize your vision for the long-term future of Victoria.
You know, my husband and I have lived here for 33 years, and this has been a community for more than 150 years, and it is a spectacular place. We moved here from South Dakota, and we found great friends and great community here through our neighborhood, through our church, at the schools. My vision is that this continues along, and generations that come behind us have the very same experience that we've had here. It's a great place to raise a family. It is a great place to own a home, and I don't want that to change in any way. I want generations to come behind us and have that very same experience.
Paul?
I think along the same lines, but capture the past and prepare for the future. If we look at the long-term vision of Victoria, again, answering that question around what do we want to be is critical. We're going to be, once it's all laid out, we'll be the largest geographic city within Carver County. We have significant growth, and if you look at the growth rates projected, I think we're like 400 or 500% growth projected in Carver County, by far the largest growth city. What that means is that we've got to have an orderly process to go about that, and we've got to be patient with that. If we can't arrive at the conclusions that we need to do, that's okay. We're not in a rush. We don't have to push things through just to get them through and then realize we made a mistake later on. So part of that long-term vision, I think, is a deliberate, thoughtful process about how we go along with that. And that means that the council has to be working together. We've got to be open to any and all ideas as we're coming forward and making sure that those ideas are captured and communicated. And I think we can do significantly better as we move forward around bringing resident input into the fold and making sure that that's communicated back out so that everybody can look at that and say, gosh, you know what they brought up over there was a good idea. One other thing, I think a farmer's market in downtown is part of my long-term initiative, and I want to see that happen in short order.
Sharon.
Long-term vision, I think we need to look at the 13 and a half acres we have to the west of the downtown core and develop that with possibly senior housing, perhaps a small grocery store, like a convenience-type store. And a convenience-type store there combined with a farmer's market in Victoria would be an excellent substitute for a large grocery store. I see Victoria in the future as a vibrant city with much to offer, proud of its heritage, and just the friendly, welcoming town that it's been to us for the last 50 years.
Judy.
Okay. Those are all great visions. I like going last. Sometimes it's tough. The idea of the farmers market is kind of a cool idea, I think. And I do like the idea of a convenience store because I think that the first thing we need to do is look at that 13 and a half acres that has been sitting there for years and figure out a great use for that. And that would help be the beginning of broadening our tax base. From that point, then I think that's when, Paul, we go to the south, when we annex Lake Town, and then we start looking at what we can do down there. It's all going to take time. You have to be patient. We have to look at all the ways to do it. But these are, we're coming really close to being grown up. I think we're in the teenage years right now. But at some point, everything is going to balance out. And I think that, the growing pains that we've had are part of these growing pains and that we're going to be okay. Thank you.
Candidates now will have 1.5 minutes for their closing statements to summarize their qualifications and positions. And we will begin with Paul Hepperla.
Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters, to Judy, Sharon, and Deb, and for the residents for their questions. One, I'm very happy to see that we saw much more agreement up here than we saw disagreement. And I think I can, I'll just say for all four of us, I think we're all pretty friendly people, and well, except for Sharon, but she's tough. No, and I think we all have the capability and capacity to get along, both on a personal level and on a council level. So I think that's an important thing. 25 years of experience in business has taught me a lot of things, and also coming from both a large family growing up, being the youngest of 8 with 6 older sisters, and being in a family now with 3 girls and my beautiful fiance and dogs and cats. Chaos is constant and change is constant, and I'm better suited in that sort of environment than most people, and so I'm okay with the constant flux and the changes that are going to occur in the city. And I think as we move forward, again, focusing on transparency, engagement, integrity, and ethics as the core foundation, dealing with things honestly and openly, and being patient about it. We don't need to rush into decisions unless we're all in agreement. And so I ask for your vote on November 6th. I also ask for your questions and input. I will take it, whether it's good or bad, from a perspective of me. So thank you for your participation, and I welcome your input.
Deb McMillan.
Victoria residents, we have an opportunity to move Victoria forward. I support creating a vision that is reflective of what the people of Victoria want. We owe it to the residents to be a functional council that makes priorities. Your priorities are priorities. Victoria residents have been clear. They want the council to get back to the work of the city. Let's create an environment in Victoria that residents, businesses, and investors want to be part of. Let's make sure we provide services at a good value for our residents. Let's ensure that investors aren't deterred by uncertainty created by an unpredictable, arbitrary development process. Let's make sure we have the very best city staff to carry out the vision of the council. Let's champion thought governing that has a positive impact on our property values, our quality of life, and our community. I'd be honored to bring my government and community affairs experience to work for Victoria. I'm interested in working with my fellow council members to find consensus and create a vision that we can move forward together. I want to thank the League again for hosting this forum. Thanks to all of you who have shown up here and those who are watching online. And finally, thank you to my fellow candidates. You've really made me better. And if elected, I will do my very best to represent you, and I'd be honored to have your vote. Thank you so much for your time.
Judy Black.
Well, what all this boils down to is which two candidates are most aligned with your thinking on the best way to guide Victoria into the future, and who do you trust to make that happen? I've shown my commitment to you for nearly 2 years now by speaking out on issues you are concerned with, and I pledge to continue being your voice while in office by listening and reporting my findings to Council for consideration. The citizen survey can't be ignored. You spoke out. Those concerns need to be prioritized and addressed. We, as your council, as a whole, need to focus on creating a positive working environment that attracts top talent to assist us in creating the environment you want and need in a fiscally responsible way. Attracting new business development opportunities to broaden the tax base will be a great start, and by working together, we can show these businesses we are a great place to invest in. I have survived cancer, a misstep off a ladder that nearly finished me off, built a business from the ground up, and I did it all with the encouragement and support of my Victoria friends and neighbors. I am passionate about the people of Victoria, and I want to give back. And I've got 15 seconds, so I just want to thank everybody and thank the candidates and thank the League of Voters.
Sharon Eklund.
Well, once again, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters of Eastern Carver County for sponsoring this forum, and to all of you who attended. I'd like to reinforce my basic reason for running for City Council, and it is to be a representative for all residents of Victoria, longtime residents and new. We need a fresh start. I will serve you with integrity and honesty. I promise to be transparent and to keep you informed, to promote fiscal responsibility, to ensure your tax money is spent wisely and in the best interest of all residents. I will welcome concerns and questions, and I will do my best to get you answers. We have an opportunity to make Victoria an even better place to live and to raise a family. I will be honored to receive your vote for Victoria City Council. Thank you.
I would like to remind you that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate by the League of Women Voters Eastern Carver County. And now for our closing, here is LWV ECC President Maria Moeller.
League of Women Voters Eastern Carver County would like to thank you all for coming tonight and our online audience for viewing. We'd especially like to thank our candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our communities. The League researches issues important to our members and to the health of our communities. If you are interested in finding out more about what we do and how you can also make a difference, please pick up a membership brochure at the registration table or visit us at lwvmn.org. Membership is open to all people ages 16 and older. You can find more information about candidates and about voting at mnvotes.org and lwvmn.org. This forum is being recorded and will be available on our Facebook page, on the City of Victoria website, and on the League of Women Voters Minnesota website. Again, thank you for coming, and remember to vote on November 6th. Thank you.